Welcome to Monkey and Frank. My name is Doe, and my body is Dom. And today is going to be a hard conversation for me to even say. And I'm going to be continuing my journey with cannabis. But first, I wanted to share with you guys on what cannabis I feel did in my life. From a young age, as soon as I started smoking cannabis, that's all I wanted to do. And I started shutting myself from others or surrounded myself with only people that smoked. So all of my friends smoked cannabis. Now, I had other friends, right? Because I was charismatic, but I would tend to hang out only with the friends that smoked weed. And once college arrived and I had lost my first girlfriend and I would smoke, then I started to become really isolated. College had separated me from my family, my friends, because I was always smoking and I was ashamed. My parents didn't like that I smoked, so I would stay away from their place. And for a while, that was my lifestyle. And I would have girlfriends that would smoke, and it was very unhealthy. It's what people fear of cannabis smoker. I was that example of just being solitude in my own apartment or with my friends that smoke and just smoke and kind of get wasted and never really go out. Kevin, I understand. I know what I'm saying is very important, but come here. And it was depressing. That was my life. When I had that first girlfriend during high school, I was going out and everything like that. And when I would smoke weed, I would be solo and I would go inward and only hang out. So it was bad. And talking about it now, I've got a lot of different views on it because of when I went to Peru, but I feel a lot of shame and I feel a lot of disappointment in the idea, as if like I missed a lot of my life because of cannabis. But I know that everything is meant to be, and we're going to get there in the story. So now, when I was a flight attendant, I got to Toronto. I, again, lost everything. Even though I had barely nothing, I only had one friend or a couple of friends that I smoked weed. I had my cousin and my family. But my family I would not hang out often with because they would not really understand what I was going through with my depression, and I didn't want to bum them out. And I had often no money because of my cannabis use. I would buy, an ounce every whatever, all the time. And it was not cheap. And it kind of ruled my life for a long, long time. And so, as a flight attendant, it was nice. I had a lot of experiences. I got to travel to a lot of places, and I saw China. I saw everywhere. I went to China, Tel Aviv, England, but I went to China way too many times, and I saw the pollution, insane over there. I saw Paris, France. I saw. My cats are so annoying sometimes. That's when I know I'm flustered. I did a video of that today on how if I'm unable to contain my frustration with my cats, it's like I'm ashamed. I'm not living spirituality. And this video right now, it sucks. Facing the truth of what cannabis did to my life before Peru, because that's the paradox. I might as well talk about it right now. When I went to Peru and I understood that plant medicine had a spiritual side and they were kind of spirits and they could talk to you. And then I experienced ayahuasca, and she used my inner monologue to teach me so many things and to give me a week that was so freaking magical. Thank you again, Arcana. That was insane. And now I come back home, and I was afraid to smoke cannabis because I knew that it had ruled my life for such a long time. And when I came back home, I could not handle the chaos of having two children, being in a situation that I had put myself in just because of fear and uncertainty and weakness and cannabis, like indecision and laziness. And I couldn't handle it. And I knew now that cannabis was a master plant from Peru. I knew that spirits existed, so I gave it a try. And the first time I smoked after Peru, it was the most insane feeling in the world. After a couple of puffs, it felt like I was having the biggest panic attack, like, the same thing I had experienced before Peru, but now I could handle it because of my Sapo experience and my Ayahuasca experience. I had developed a strength for being in the soup of extreme feelings, I guess. So I felt the anxiety, and right away I went downstairs and I started doing the Wim Off breathing. The Wim Off breathing for me is life. During my Sapo experience, when it showed me that using the Wim Hof breathing, I could really conquer any feeling at any time. When I came back home and I smoked cannabis and I went downstairs and performed the Wim Hof breathing, the cannabis started talking to me right away. I had an awareness of the plant medicine. It was there. And I started communicating with it, and I would ask it questions, and I would have intentions on specific healing. I wanted to find self-love. So I started from that point on after Peru, taking cannabis with real intention and a real ceremonial, spiritual way. And it was crazy what it was doing to my inner monologue, because every time I would take the cannabis medicine, I would start talking inside my head, but it was so positive, and it was so every flavor of cannabis had its own personality. When I would smoke my White Widow, it felt like an old grandma that would come along and just say, do your breathing, hold, cry, I'm healing you here, I'm doing this, go in this posture. And then I would smoke Strawberry Cough, which is a very strong 24% sativa, and she would make me work out and, really meditate with good posture, because I was so tense. I had no flexibility at all last year before Peru. And the cannabis kept teaching me, coaxing me. I was being one with the plant. I have to explain a few things. Before Peru and my story with cannabis, when I went to become a flight attendant, I lost all my friends. And when I came back, I had this one friend that I would hang out with, and that's it, that's all. And I had Frank. And when Frank passed away, then I only had that one friend. And being the mess that I was, it was impossible for anybody to be around me. As much as I was a good person, I was angry, sad, depressed, full of anxiety. I had trouble going out to do activities, so I became very much a loner. And so I quit cannabis, right? And then that's when I met my wife, and that's when my cousin died, and I went back to cannabis after my wife, and then I started dating. It was just very negative, and I had no friends. All I had was my wife, my girlfriend. And for a while we met some new friends. We did a lot of MDMA, and MDMA, I don't know if I've explained it before, but MDMA totally fixed my relationship, because I was such a depressed and anxious person. As soon as I did MDMA one night, it cured me of a lot of anxiety. I could smoke cannabis, and my MDMA was before Peru. I'm jumping all over the place because I'm emotional. But my MDMA made it possible so that I could clear a lot of trauma, so that I could marry my wife and have children. And then when I went back to my old ways, when I had lost those friends, those MDMA friends, you want to call them, and I was back to being alone with my wife with 2 children, because children takes a lot of time too, so it's hard for me as a loner, as a person that was always isolated because of cannabis and because I had started cannabis again, and I couldn't let it go. Every time that I tried, I would just be a mess, and I would fight a lot. So then, before Peru, I had to quit a month before because I knew that ayahuasca didn't like cannabis, and if I went there with cannabis, it might block my healing. And I really wanted to change. I wanted to grow. I wanted to so bad to to evolve. So then when I get to I end up quitting cannabis for a month. I go to Peru. I get this crazy experience. I come back and life is so chaotic. And now I go back to cannabis and she's there as a support. I still have no friends other than my family that I just met in Peru, so I'm really attached to them. But my fear is so consuming, afraid of losing them, afraid of looking like a fool, afraid of everything. And yet, you know, I had done the Sapo experience. It had showed me what it felt like to be completely empty and trauma-free. So it had given me a goal to go forward and to walk towards. And now cannabis was helping me. And it was so confusing because all of my life I saw it as something that I couldn't control, something that I couldn't put down, that I couldn't put aside. And every time I did, my life went in beautiful directions until something happened, which was a blessing and a curse at the same time. You know, having this new job as a flight attendant, to meeting this girlfriend and wife, and I losing my cousin. You know, everything is meant to be. So I'm very thankful to be here and now. But Jesus, so now this year I use cannabis to do so many things. One night after one after not, I'm doing cannabis ceremonies and I'm working crazily hard at spirituality, trying to find out what's going on. Every time I would smoke, my mind, my inner monologue would be very aligned, and I would go straight to Mother after a while. But the monologue was still very much loud. If I would not be doing the Wim Off breathing or concentrating, cannabis would just go bring me for a ride. I don't know if you guys, you know, when you guys smoke and you're not really in control of your thoughts and it goes from one thought to another and you're just high. Well, with cannabis as a master plan, I was talking to it, and still to this day, we are one, right? So it was very confusing, and it still is, to tell you the truth, to this day. I am still a cannabis user daily, and I'm still very much confused on what will be the future with it. But I'm getting the great feeling that the next time I go to Peru, it might be my last time with cannabis, or I'm not sure. I want to know the truth, and every time that I ask Mother outside of cannabis, or when I'm doing my meditation, and she says that it's good for me. Every mushroom trip that I did, the mushroom always told me that cannabis and I are on a journey and are working together in this life. But the problem, it's making me so freaking tired all the time, and I know it's making me depressed, and I know it's making me spiritual in a way where, so it's kind of like, do I want this? I know that spirituality is something very important right now, and I'm holding on to it. But I know that the more fanatic you become about it, the more it's because you're afraid. You know, you're still not trusting life and what it has to give. The cold, I want to talk about the cold and the Wim Off breathing. The Wim Off breathing, I started 5 years before I went to Peru, and it changed my life. Before I go into the Wim Off, I wanted to share an experience of just like what I would do with cannabis, kind of with my friends. Often we'd go camping, and it was just a big driving fest of smoking, being zoned out, being so tired, and then getting to like Sudbury or whatever 6 hours later, smoking and not really wanting to do anything. And one day we go to a cottage up north, and it was cold and it was raining. And the entire time I was with my best friend and another friend that I didn't really want to be with, who was the driver. And he was drinking, and I felt unsafe and I was anxious the entire time. And it was just, I knew from the bottom of my heart that it was just not going to be a good weekend. When we get there, we decide to grab the canoe and go to the island. There was an island in the middle of the lake. Well, pretty far anyways, like 10, 20 minutes away by canoe. And we're so high, and the guy is drunk, and we don't really think. We just pack everything in the canoe and we go, and we don't even take any life jacket. And because it's cold, I've got like my construction boot, my jeans and everything. Once we get to the island, we pitch up the tent and we continue smoking, and it starts raining, kind of slush and cold. We go in the tent and we just smoke the entire night, and I'm just unhappy. Like the entire time I'm just ugh. Like, and that was my life, like a lot of it, where and I know that it's because of cannabis, but anyways, I keep going back there as if I've got regrets. I really enjoy my life now, like after Peru and this cannabis and what I'm doing with it. So I don't want to shit on it. I have so much respect for the master plan. So anyways, let's go back in my past and go how I felt. The next morning we wake up and I'm burnt, and it's still freaking raining and it's cold outside. And we decide, just me and my best friend, to go in the canoe and leave the other guy behind, to go and get like the motorboat or something like that, so that we can come back and pick up the shit and go back home. Like, what a waste, right? And we go, and I've got my jeans again, my long johns, my construction boots. I've got like 4 or 5 sweater and my coat and a hoodie and a toque, and we go in the middle of the lake, and it's cold and I'm unhappy. And I tell to my friend, like, hey, where's your chalet? And he points in one direction, and we both look. And as he did that, the canoe started to go, it flipped, it went underwater. And just before it hit underwater, I knew what I was in for. I had done swimming lessons all of my life, all the way to a Bronze Cross, and I knew with my jeans, my boots, my shirt, no life jacket, how am I going to swim? What am I going to do? And panic hit me, like a panic that I've never had before. It was the strongest feeling. It was like Sapo, but knowing that you're going to die. And it was like your life flashes before your eye. It was not that. For me, it was like everything that I had learned about swimming and my clothing and my current situation and what that's going to feel like and how I'm going to drown. That's the only thing I could feel. That's the only thing I could see. And when I hit the water, the water was so cold that it hit the side of my chest, and I couldn't breathe. So now I was kicking the canoe and kind of going under the water and panicking so hard. The feelings of panic were so extreme because I kept going under the water, kicking the canoe, and my friend was on the other side, and the canoe for him was out of the water, so he didn't have to swim. And I kept going underwater, kicking the canoe, taking a breath, going underwater, kicking the canoe, taking a breath, and I was panicking. And my friend kept telling me, relax, you got this, relax. And I didn't get this. The panic was so freaking extreme. It felt like it lasted forever. And then all of a sudden, everything goes black. My eyesight, my everything goes black and quiet. I've got no more feelings. Everything is black and quiet. And I hear a voice. Sounds like me. I know it's an inner monologue of some kind. And it says, do you want to live? And I say yes. Right away, I say yes. And in one shot, I remove all of my shirt and I go over the canoe and I sit like on top of it and I take a deep breath, and in my mind, I'm like, what the fuck just happened? Like, I did not remove that shirt. I did not go on top of the canoe. That was done for me by that voice. And as soon as I sat over the canoe, I looked at my friend. I'm like, now what? Like, what do we do? And he's like, we got to swim. And I'm like, fuck that. And I start screaming for help. Like, I was so in shock of what just happened that I went really quiet. And there's some neighbors that heard us, and they grabbed their pontoon and they came and got us, and we went back at this cottage, and I just grabbed my shirt. At this point, I had no shoes, I had no shirts. I just walked inside the hey Jazz. I just walked inside this cottage and went inside the fireplace and kind of went in shock. I just stayed there, and I was thinking of what just happened, and I knew that it was life changing, and like I just experienced something crazy, but I didn't want to think about it. I was so scared, and the only thing I could think of it was the panic feeling. I was like, I can't believe that the only thing I did was panicked. And since that day, I was like, I'm gonna work towards this panic bullshit. I cannot believe, like, at the way that I panicked. And since then, I kind of had the idea that because I was losing oxygen, as I was not being able to breathe because of the cold and drowning kind of thing, at one point my brain just let go of all the primary function, retreated in my cortex or whatever, or well, I don't know the names, but and took control and said, do you want to live? And just took fucking control. And I didn't realize of the separation then, but now in hindsight, it was kind of like my soul, or the body. Really, it was like the body talking to the soul, saying, chill the fuck out. Like, you are the awareness. I'm going to take control. Obviously, you're panicking as fuck. You have no idea what's going on. You think you're going to die when really it's me that's going to the body. And it just took control. It's like, do you want to live? Yes. All right. So it just went, and it did what it had to do. And if I would have said no, I'm sure I would have just died, and I would have had no pain, no fear, and I would have went towards the light or whatever. You know what people talk about in their near-death experience. So anyways, I experienced that. And after like many years, five years, that's when I meet my wife. And then I marry her, and I start doing the Wim Off breathing to kind of get over my depression and try anything. I was at my computer, and I was listening to the Joe Rogan, and I see Wim Off in there. And it was sent to me by a friend because he said that it really helped his depression because he was doing it daily. So I tried it, but I didn't do it right. I was not following the steps properly. But the feeling that I got was really interesting, and I want to share it with you guys because I feel like it's one of the most important thing I've ever done in my life, the Wim Off breathing. Really, if you try it right now, super simple. Just take 5 deep breaths. And when you get to the top, just let go. Don't empty your lungs fully. And then another deep breath, let go. Deep breath, let go. And then when you do 5 or whatever breaths, 5 or 10, and you want to experience what the Wim Hof is, just sit down or lie down because I don't want you to pass out. But take 5 to 10 deep breaths, and then take a deep breath and push, like as if you're taking a deep breath fully in, closing your throat, and you push towards your like inside your lungs, towards your diaphragm, for example, and you're going to feel a rush, as if you're going to pass out. And that rush of passing out, what it does, and then hold your breath, like push and hold your breath for as long as you can, and you're going to feel what I felt that day. And it's a rush of your body passing out. Like if you have shitty circulation, like I was a smoker, I didn't do any sports all of my life, and when I pushed, it felt like the oxygen was opening up my veins, which was making me feel a rush. That's why Wim says get high on your own supply. So really try it. It's really taking 10 deep breaths, then take a deep breath and push and hold as long as you can, and you'll feel the feeling of the Wim Hof breathing. Well, if you do the proper way, which is, 20 deep breaths, and then you just hold your breath, and then when you're ready to breathe, you take a deep breath and you push. You do that like 4 or 5 times in a row, like 4 rounds or whatever. And what it did for me was a miracle. Every day that I would do I couldn't even do it alone. What it does, it pushes your body to heal. So it pushes towards your anxiety. It starts healing trauma. It's basically a way to go towards spirituality, but I didn't know it. All I knew is that I really enjoyed the feeling, and I knew that it was healing my circulatory system because I could as a smoker, you have shitty circulation. My hands were always cold. It was crazy. I had always shoulder pains, very skinny, light skin. Like the skin is kind of like a white dyeing, ashy or whatever. And when I would do the Wim Hof breathing, I would go all red. I would feel like the oxygen would go towards my hands, and my hands would go like cramping. They would cramp in crazy way, like I would have a claw when I would do the Wim Hof breathing, because the oxygen was going inside and just trying to heal. And the more I did the Wim Hof breathing, the more I would feel good. So I was hopeful that it would start healing my depression. So I started doing more and more, but I didn't buy the course, and I just kind of was going by my own feeling, which was doing the breaths, pushing, and then holding my breath. And that was dangerous because I was doing that while driving, and a few times I almost passed out and caused an accident. But I knew that it was feeling great, so I was doing it all the time. Well, one day, because the Wim Hof breathing was all about the cold, I decided to go to the park, take off my jacket, and start doing the breathing. And as I'm doing the breathing, I'm going deep, right? I'm pushing hard. I can feel the oxygen going straight to my brain, and I'm feeling close to passing out, but not, because I've got this warrior mentality. Wim Hof is so charismatic that I had him in my heart. Like I could hear him. I had created a soundtrack with his voice of fully in, letting go, fully in, and it was amazing. So anyways, I get to the park, and at one point I'm really in the groove, and I take a deep breath and I push really hard, and that fucking voice that was there when I don't know why I said fucking, I love that voice so much. That voice that was there when I was drowning was there again and said, "Way to go, Dom, you're doing great." And I'm like, what? And it threw me so off guard, and I'm like, wow, the Wim Hof breathing is the way to go. Like with the Wim Hof breathing, I was able to access the reptilian part of my brain, and because that was my philosophy and that's what I thought happened when I drowned, I knew that Wim Hof's theory was right, because he kept talking about the university, and what you do is the brain, the higher part of the brain connects to the reptilian part of the brain when you do the fully in, fully out, and then you hold your breath, and then you push, and you go near passing out because you're going towards your... And what it does is it's really crazy. Like your body heals. I've healed my circulatory system so much that in the 5 years when I decided to go to Peru, because of all of the courage that I was gaining from the Wim Hof breathing and the cold shower I was taking, I might as well talk to you about that too. Because of the Wim Hof breathing, and I was so passionate about it, and I was doing it every night, 40 minutes a night, like for 5 years straight, I started doing the shower, the cold shower, like a few months before I went to Peru. And when I got into the cold shower and I was investigating psychedelics and everything, and I was starting to think like, oh man, spirits, maybe those exist. I get in the cold shower, and when I hit the cold, I don't know what happened, but I thought of ayahuasca, where I was maybe gonna go, and I said, "Hey cold, how's it going?" And the cold answered back in that voice that I had heard when I almost drowned, that voice that I heard when I was doing the Wim Hof breathing at the park, but this time the cold, because the cold was so extreme. It was winter, and it's like 1 degree, 2 degrees when you take a shower, and the cold was so extreme that when I talked to it, when I said hi and it answered back with that voice, again it caught me off guard, and I leaned into it, like leaned into the cold, and I felt the warm embrace of a hug, as if the cold was hugging me and was showing me that, hey, if you lean into me, if you lean into the cold, I'm going to heal you the same way as you're getting healing from the Wim Hof breathing. Both are one. And when I experienced that, I felt such a blessing inside my heart, because now I knew what Wim was talking about like the cold is a teacher. The cold is there, and it's merciless, but it's righteous. And when I was talking to it, I kept saying thank you. First of all, like, I can't believe that spirits exist, and I'm so happy to be talking to you every single morning. You're giving me motivation to go and do this journey in Peru, and I'm not sure, should I do it? And it kept telling me, yeah, you can, like, you got this. You got the Wim Off breathing. You've got the cold. You got this. Like, as much as you dislike puking and all of the purging and how crazy it looks, like, it's going to heal you. Like, maybe you have a fear of purging that you need to let go. And I was thinking, like, every time I would do the Wim Hof breathing and I would take a deep breath and let go, it felt like puking in a way. Like, when you let go and you really let go properly, it's like an opening up of your heart, soul, whatever part of the stomach, and it feels like you're, like as if you'd be puking. Like, and so I decided to go. Like, the cold, Wim Hof breathing, cannabis in a way, because it pushed me so far to the edge of loneliness, unhappiness, depression, feeling like I'm insane because of my experience of when I was a flight attendant and I was talking to myself, but the voice was so negative. And now the Wim Hof breathing was silencing everything, and on top of that, it was bringing in that inner reptilian part of myself that I knew was such a positive voice. I was so proud of myself that the day that I'm going to die, I'm not going to be the monster that I thought I was all of this life. I'm not going to be that pissed off, angry, sad little fucking person that had the world given to him and it was so ungrateful and just didn't take any of the opportunity because you were just too concerned about cannabis and getting high. And god damn it, And now after Peru, freaking the paradox is that cannabis has made me so much greater. Like, you've brought me so much inner peace. So when I came back from Peru and I smoked that cannabis and I would do some ceremony, what cannabis was showing me is that my inner monologue was so negative that when I would smoke and I would bring in spirituality, everything would go on the up and up, and it would feel like I would have a positive inner monologue because I would be spiritual. I would, think gratefulness. I would do the Wim Hof breathing. I would breathe and I would look at my feelings and all of my feelings, and I would encourage purging and crying and you got this, Dom. Fucking all year you did this. And then at one point, when cannabis showed me about my third eye, my open heart, and then she removed all the inner monologue in my head. Like, it's so quiet in my mind. All I have is me and this positive force that only disappears when I'm not spiritual, or I'm get angry, or when I start getting attached to time or my work or my family sometimes, when I get attached to my daughter needing to go to bed at this time, eating this food, and then I start getting pissed off. And that it's not like I've got an inner monologue of, shitting on me all the time, but I'm getting angry. And when I get angry, it's just dark. And when I'm not angry, it's quiet. It's always quiet. But I know that when I bring spirituality in the here and now, and that's why I encourage imagination, and I use my imagination and I really talk inside, I hear Mother. I have to kind of do a meditation, not a meditation. I have to bring it on. I have to use creativity and imagination because that's the only thing that there is. It's the gold inside my third eye, my heart, and just what is. It's so quiet. But anyways, it's cannabis that made my mind quiet. It's cannabis that showed me the focus to be here and now all the time. Like, I do not think of the future. I do not think of the past. And when I do, I know there's a trauma, so I go towards the trauma and I breathe towards it, and I do the Wim Hof breathing and I take cold showers, and and the big paradox of this cannabis thing is, now that I'm here and now, my mind is quiet, and I understand why my frustration comes, and I'm really looking at it, and it's so better and better. The contrast is night and day from last year before Peru to now. So I wanted to say, cannabis, like, really thank you from the bottom of my heart for this journey. Sorry for having trouble seeing, like, that life is perfect, because I feel like I've lost so much. Like there's so many things that I did not do, that I just, my potential, like I feel like you've robbed me of so much of my potential, but there's no but. That's how I feel. That's a trauma. So hopefully I can heal it, and hopefully, I know, okay, that everything is perfect. So please just forgive me for my words. Forgive me for this trauma. I want to switch everything around so that we're one and we continue doing work together, and that maybe one day I can let you go knowing that you're always within me. Like the fact that I smoke is irrelevant now. You know that we're one. So thank you so much. Thank you, Mother. Thank you, listeners. And sorry for really being confusing and jumping back and forth. Disintegration, this is really difficult, but I really appreciate it. So love you with all my heart. And Monkey and Frank, my friends, I'm on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. Monkey and Frank. Oh, I'm so tired. Monkey and Frank.